Hey, this is my reflecting write-of assignment on my culture. And let's see here. I'll just dive in. So culture is defined as all the ways of life, including arts and beliefs and institutions of various populations that are passed down from like generation to generation. I found definitions of collectivist cultural orientation from Simply Psychology online, and collectivist cultural orientation, according to them, is a community that prioritizes the group over the individual. Collectivist cultures emphasize personality traits and attributes like cohesion and harmony, duty, interdependence, achievement of group goals, and conflict avoidance. From the same source, Simply Psychology, I think is, Simply Psychology, I found their definition of individualist cultural orientation, quote, a community that prioritizes the individual over the collective group. Individualistic cultures emphasize attributes like uniqueness or individuality, personal goals, independence, self-reliance, self-sufficiency, and privacy, unquote. So how do I identify myself culturally? I am a Chicana. I am Mexican-American. And I feel a pretty strong connection to my culture's background. I grew up in a very big family, but not just with brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles. Our family extended through our religious beliefs. So I had my godparents and a lot of god brothers and god sisters and cousins always around. Because cultural orientation is a spectrum, and because I'm a product of my environment, I am more of a collectivist than an individualist. I was raised in the Pacific Northwest, but like I said, I have a very strong connection to my Chicanx roots, those of the southwestern part of the United States. My dad is from East LA, and my mom is from the southern coast of Oregon. My grandparents on my mom's side are from Mexico, and I spent a lot of my youth with them as well. As a Chicana, I have a strong dedication to my family and to my community and my friends. Love, kindness, respect, loyalty, and integrity are the utmost important characteristics that I value in and that I try to uphold myself. And those are also the same characteristics that we model and try to teach as appropriate for society in our home. Most of that is because that's how I was raised and that's what I was taught. Again, a product of my environment. My husband and I foster a team, quote, team mentality in our home. So we teach our kids that we rise together. And if somebody should be down mentally, emotionally, or physically, It's the rest of our job to support them and to pick up the slack, and to be empathetic to their situation. One thing that is different, that I do that is different from what my culture and their orientation promotes, is that I don't avoid conflict. I definitely confront conflict. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that I'm a product of my environment. I am Chicana, but I was raised, like I said, in the Pacific Northwest in an individualistic culture, right, in the United States. So I grew up also learning how to confront conflict and not to shy away from it. In saying that, we confront conflict in my household, but it's not easy for my husband because he grew up in a Chicanx household where they didn't confront conflict. And but I have learned, and we've both learned, to do so with grace and mercy. And that's what we're teaching our children, is that to do it respectfully and in a healthy way. I have personal goals, but my success ultimately benefits my family and my community, which I probably wouldn't have the goals that I have if I didn't identify as a collectivist, I guess. My goals are to become a community nurse, to work, in community nursing, right? I teach my children self-sufficiency because I think that's really important in this day and age. But I also teach them to be helpful and the importance of being helpful to other people and to be kind and courteous, and considerate, super considerate of other people and their situation. I teach my children about Mexican American history, not just American history or other parts of the world. And I teach them the traditions that our Chicanx relatives and ancestors have. But I don't expect them to embrace everything as, like, say, my parents expected that of me. I prefer that my kids form their own opinions. And you know what? I appreciate and respect that they start their own traditions, as long as it's not hurtful, to others. I speak English and some Spanish, but my grandparents spoke Spanish and very little English. My mom speaks English and very little Spanish because where she grew up, Spanish was discouraged from being spoken. My dad speaks Spanish and English, but I didn't spend a lot of time with him as a kid. So I think if I had, I would probably speak more Spanish. Let's see. Oh, affection. We are very affectionate people. And I think that corresponds to my culture and my culture's orientation as collectivist. We're very affectionate people. In my household, we're physically affectionate, so hugs and besos and cheek pinches, like hair strokes and like shoulder touches, piggyback rides, anything like that is really common to see in my household. My husband, though, didn't grow up like that, and so that's different for him. But the family that we've created, so my little tribe, we express our affection both physically with hugs and stuff, but also verbally. You'll always find that when you're around me or my family, you'll hear us say, "I love you," or "Oh, you did a wonderful job." But growing up, I did not experience that. I didn't hear "I love you" very often, or "I'm proud of you," or "I'm happy for you." I just didn't hear that. And I think that that's true for I don't know, actually. I guess that's a question I have. Is that true to be found, like, is verbal affection normal in collectivist cultures or abnormal? I'm not sure. Anyway, disapproval. Well, I grew up with disapproval being shown to me as guilt trips and silent treatments and verbal shaming. It was pretty toxic, but, and that's not how we treat our children. When we disapprove of something, my husband and I are very vocal about it, but not in a disrespectful way. We ask a lot of questions. We try to problem solve with our children to help them see what we disapprove of, I guess, and to help them identify how that disapproval came to be about, like what choices were made and how can those choices, how can they make choices differently? Self-disapproval, I totally guilt myself, like I shame myself, and that's really bad. But I think that that's just because that's what's normal for me, and I try not to do that. How do our family members communicate? Oh my gosh, my family, the family that I was raised in with my brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and everything, they speak over each other constantly. If you are not quick to speak or loud to speak, then you will not be heard in my extended family. But the family that I've created with my husband, we tend to take turns speaking because it feels more respectful and it feels more meaningful. And I think that that's where, I'm a collectivist, but also an individualist. Some sayings that guided my behavior growing up, one in particular is, you'd better respect your elders, which I had a difficult time doing because I thought that it was appropriate to respect elders, right? Older folks, and be considerate and bite your tongue, as long as they gave the same respect back to me. But, looking at my older brothers and sisters and cousins, they just gave older people respect just because that's what was expected of them, even if the older people were super disrespectful. I was not down with that. And I think that that's because I grew up, I'm a millennial. I grew up a millennial in an individualistic culture, Anyway, I don't have strong opinions about infant feeding practices. I think as long as your kids are nourished and you find a way that works best for you and your family, I think that that's great. I don't have an opinion either way. As far as children behaving around adults, I think that that's a loaded question. Like I said, I grew up in a very strict environment where if you didn't behave like an adult, you were reprimanded. And it was pretty fierce. But I think children should be respectful to other people, to whether they're adults or other children. But I also think that they deserve respect. And in a collectivist culture, adults treat children more with like an authoritative behavior, which I don't always agree with. I don't. I think children should be treated with love and kindness, especially with patience and compassion. And consequences should be appropriate. But I also think that there should be reward for good behavior when kids are learning how to socialize. Yeah. So this is really long-winded, and I appreciate you listening. If you think that I should write this out, I'm happy to attempt it. But I gotta say, recording this has been a lifesaver. I hope that I conveyed everything that you were expecting out of this assignment. If not, I appreciate all of your feedback. and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Thanks so much. Have a great night.